Good morning, everybody. I'm excited, of course, for another opportunity to speak to you guys for Mindset Monday. And we have a special guest today with us. So we have Nate Jones, who's a part of, obviously, our community. He's a partner with us with JSCareers and his company that has got a tool that should help speed you up and allow you to be able to cut through some of the noise that we have when it comes as a job seeker. So we'll have Nate speak at the very, very end, but I want to make sure that I recognized him and thanked him for being with us before we jumped in. And, you know, when I plan these out, I do my best to try and build these, say, a week to 2 weeks. The themes are typically always there based on seasonality, based on individuals that I've been in contact with. But the theme this week of Audit and Adjust just fits so well with what Nate has created, and it fits in the timing of where we are in the seasonality as a job seeker. As we are moving towards the holiday season, this is a wonderful time for us to be able to kind of take that step back, and we think through this fourth quarter, and we start to just reflect a little bit differently. And you guys all know that reflection, discovery, and execution is one of my favorite things to teach everybody. But ultimately, inside of this, it's the chance to breathe. I want to make that very clear for everybody. Before we get deep into the holiday spirit and travel and families coming in and all of the things that can add stress to us that are in an already stressful situation as a job seeker, it's extremely important to take that moment and let's look at the audit of what's been going on so that we can make adjustments, right? So the idea here is when we think we're going to look at a lot of strategy. We're not gonna do self-criticism. As a job seeker, it's extremely easy for all of us to be able to just criticize the situation that we currently are in. It's simple for us to pick up all the things that are going wrong. That's not what we're looking to do. We want to make sure that we can peel back the layers of any situation and find the positive inside of those. We find the wins. Hence why we post our 3 wins on Friday. The idea here is we're building emotional and mental resilience in a difficult time. This is what allows us to be able to push through these moments and find really truly who we are and what we are as an individual contributor, as a leader, and as a developer of thoughts and ideas that help affect the corporations that we want to work for. And I'll give you a good understanding of this. And you guys know I love my studies, I love my data, right? So Harvard Business Review did a study of professionals who regularly audit their goals as well as companies. And what they found was there was a very key, distinct percentage that overlapped within themselves. So whether you think of yourself as an individual looking through your goals every quarter, or you think as a corporation, the proof of the pudding is this: 31% of all companies and individuals who regularly looked at their goals and did an audit of those goals in a 90-day period of time not only had more productivity, right, but then there was a 45% chance of reduction of burnout. So you improve your chances of not just being more productive by doing audits, but you also prevent one of the most difficult things that it is about a job seeker, and that is become burned out. So that process that we teach daily is something that, of course, we can do quarterly. And that is what we really want to lean into today. Okay. And for job seekers, I decided to take it a step further. I decided to go, okay, well, let's go. What does that look like? So I went to LinkedIn, I went to McKinsey, and I pulled a couple different reports. And if you want to look specifically for this one identified report, you can go to LinkedIn Workforce Report, and it's 2024. If you want the source, I'll send it to you. But for job seekers, for those individuals who were extremely successful within 90 days, and I want to remind you, that is mine and Tina's goal, right? The number one thing that Tina and I teach is we want to teach how any individual can adjust some key habits, some key momentum, some key movements, some strategy, so you can find the right job in those 90 days. This is based off of data. We didn't just make that number up. It didn't just magically happen. The entire program is designed and built so that we're not only touching this from a psychology perspective, but also from a process, a system and process. We want to make sure everything is built specifically so that you can find success in your journey. Well, inside this report, it showed that the most successful job seekers who land a role within those 90 days audited their strategy at least every 4 to 6 weeks. And you focus in on really 3 core areas when you make your adjustments. And I want you to be very clear. I want you to hear me when I say this. These are the only 3 areas that consistently showed up that had a percentage of chance of improvement. Okay, and that was messaging, networking, and mindset. That's McKinsey and LinkedIn that prove that. So if you think about what we teach, that is exactly what we do. Yes, we focus on your resume, we get your story right, but that's in the beginning, and then you're turned loose. Your audit of your process is very rarely your resume over and over again. That's not what we want to do, right? So let's do this. So what is an audit? What does this really look like? Let's dive deeper in here. You've got the statistics, you know where we're going, but now let's put it into practice, right? So let's think of this for a second. You know, what really worked for you so far? You can even think of it as this year. You know, where did you show the most growth? Was it in your skills, your confidence, your relationships? You know, what habits or routines really truly either derailed your momentum or elevated your momentum? All of these 3 primary questions that I'm presenting to you are for you to be able to think through how mindset, process, and tools could have affected any of those questions. This is how you want to start to think through and measure your own success. The idea here is when you start to break it up into the 3 most important items, mindset, process, and tools, we have to first make sure we have the right mental structure, we have the right mental resiliency to be able to evaluate those victories, because those victories, again, lay upon the gaps. So the biggest piece that most people make a mistake on as a job seeker is they don't stay consistent on their daily routines. I think of a conversation I'm having with a brand new executive client of mine. This is an individual who's been successful in his life, but he's in a rut. He can't seem to get out of that rut. And as we start to ask questions, we do some different discovery. All of a sudden, I start to realize the problem is it's his daily routine. It's his morning. It's specifically his morning is not starting off correctly. Making an adjustment to your morning can change absolutely everything for you. So that then becomes now the process. Now, the process to get there is different. I'm gonna pause here before I go too much further and explain how this exactly works. But the process here is then designing how you're going to reach that overall goal. The process would be evaluating what needs to happen so that that goal can become achievable. The last piece is then what tools can help you and help utilize you reach this ultimate goal for yourself. A good example of this that you're going to hear about at the end is JobSniper. If you're an individual, as you think about as a job seeker, if your mindset is that you can't stay, you don't have consistency in your daily reflection, you don't have consistency in that daily mindset resilience, you don't have consistency then in your outreach or in the overall verbiage, then that obviously can call a derailment in your overall process that you have inside of your outreach. So the mental toughness flows into that overall process of your outreach. And then if you don't have the proper outreach, you can't properly utilize a tool, even like JobSniper, to be able to expand and maximize your full potential as a job seeker. So that is the flow that I want you to think about here. The idea here, it isn't about you feeling guilty if you have a broken process. That is one I want to really heavily weigh that on, put that out there for you guys. Please don't think of this as something that you should beat yourself up over. Understanding gaps is really all about awareness. And without awareness, right? If you don't have that awareness, then there is no way for you to make the adjustments. So the key here is not to beat yourself up. The key here is you should be excited. You should be ecstatic when you start to realize that, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that. You shouldn't beat yourself up over it. Shouldn't get frustrated over it. You should just take action on it. Because that means you've already identified something that can 2 times, 3 times, 10 times your results in that moment. That should be a victory and never something of a frustration. So how do you do that? That's the audit itself, to make the small shifts. Because the big thing here I want you to understand is everything we're discussing, it's not big changes. We'll go back to that client that I was discussing. Now, his problem was he was waking up late, right? He wasn't getting up like he used to in the mornings. And he's had a million reasons. He's got kids. He's got all these other things going on in his life now, right, that are drawing energy from him, right? And for all of us as job seekers, this is pretty common, right? When you have that lack of consistency, maybe we sleep in a little bit later, maybe we change out, maybe we can get away with working out in the middle of the day, maybe not in the morning, maybe we're not going for that walk that we discussed last week about how healthy that is to get out and get that sunshine and that movement, right? it could be easy for someone to say, oh, I'm gonna start waking up at 5 a.m. again, even though they've been waking up at 9. Let's take a pause here. It's about small victories, not big ones. Now, if you can pull that off, good for you, right? Most of us, again, studies show that that's not possible. MIT did a study that showed that individuals who just made the smallest of changes in their behavior, even the most tiny, a 30-minute wake up earlier had 7 times more effectiveness to overall change their system, but also reach their goals. So the idea here is that MIT was studying was how an individual, and again, this doesn't matter if you're talking about an athlete, if you're employed or unemployed, to make long-term lasting adjustments to you as an individual, as well as your productivity. It starts with the smallest movement that then leads you to the goal. This is the reason why for Tena and I, we always want to fully understand exactly everything you want to achieve. Because if we truly understand where you're trying to go, it's a whole lot easier to be able to show you the breadcrumbs that could potentially help you get there. Now, you still got to go consume and you got to go do it, right? And this is where the next step comes in. Gallup did a study that shows how does individuals recognize their strengths, right? And this is key for you as a job seeker. Once you understand your goal and you then understand the breadcrumbs to get there, it's about you taking action into your strengths so that you can have sustained performance. So I was so happy that Courtney popped in on this morning, because Courtney is an example of this, as she has kept her same routine for herself, right? She has not broken away from the fact that she gets up, she exercises every morning, and she is moving every single time I ever talk to her. Every time I get an update, she gives me a list of all these victories, right? Small, medium, and sometimes even huge, big list of or victories, right? And that's because she fits into this poll. She's the exact piece of this. When we met and we discussed, her strengths became clear to her, and she activated those strengths, and she is one of the individuals that sees 22% of overall engagement as a job seeker, but also sustained performance as a job seeker because she leaned into her strengths first. It's a huge moment for any job seeker when it comes to your audit. It's not about all the big, massive wins. It's really about all the small wins. What were those tiny things that you changed? What is the tweak that you made that biggest improvement? And how do you lean back into that tweak of why that happened? What did you do to simplify our process? I think one of the best things, and I see Pete actually popped in here, and I'm excited to have him here. One of the things that he did so well is he listened to Tena and the mighty words and the valuable words and the genius of Tena, which was make a simplistic resume that allows your resume to truly tell who you are, what you are, and you don't have to revamp it multiple times. You should have a clear, quality resume that shows off who you are and where you're trying to go easily, so that you don't have to make all those adjustments. Simplify your process. The biggest thing that I want to talk through as we think through how you really truly evaluate and keep from burnout, which I know is a topic of conversation I've had with several folks on this call. The idea of this is you have to be able to take a deep breath and realize that your schedule matters. As much as I'm talking about waking up earlier and adjusting your schedule so you can fit more into it, sometimes it's also about removing something out of it, right? The cool part about what we're trying to teach here is you have to understand exactly what your strategy needs and lean into that strategy. That's how we can understand what tool to activate. It is extremely important that you understand that if you want to build towards the future goal of landing your next job, the systems you put in place right now will help you be the most successful inside of your 30, 60, 90 days of acquiring that job. The 3-month quality plan they're helping you design and build for yourself to get a job is the exact duplicate plan that you're going to institute once you land the job. It's the reason why we have so many referrals to this program. A good portion of you on this call were from referrals, right? Or you saw someone talking about us on LinkedIn. It's because this system not just builds you as a job seeker, but it sets you up for success afterward. So how does this all work, right? And I'm going to wrap it with this, and then I'm going to get Nate to pop in here. And then, of course, I want Tena's words of wisdom. But the goal of an audit is to not dwell. The goal of the audit is to create action for yourself. So if you're one of the job seekers who are holding back, if you're someone who's just not taking that next step, or maybe you're kind of floundering a little bit in this, then you've got to move. Once you recognize that there's a gap, it's about leaning in and going. Now, all of my executive clients, we've started our 2026 planning already. We're already talking through what their first quarter is going to look like. We're already discussing what their companies are going to do. This is no different than for yourself. You are wrapping up a great year. I don't care if you've been out of work for the whole year. There has been growth. There's been elevation. You've moved. You've changed. You've experienced new things. You know, I love the word suffering, and you've suffered, right? And there's nothing better to grow than when you're suffering. More strength is created when you suffer, right? Because it gives you resiliency. It gives you that strength of pushing yourself, right? The key here is for you to start to looking through those small improvements. One of the best things that happens for me is Tina will call me out all the time because I'm not paying attention to the dominoes. I miss those dominoes that are being knocked over. I'm missing all the movement, right? Sometimes I'm such a perfectionist. I want more. I want to be better. I want to keep pushing myself. I want to drive myself further, right? Take a pause. Be proud of what you've achieved in all the different areas of your life and not just in the one single goal of landing a job. But then take a page out of Atomic Habits, if there's nothing else, right? And start looking about the compounding effect of small improvements. A 1% a day improvement leads to doubling of growth every single year. It's just about leaning in, right? So as we are wrapping up this conversation today, I want you to think through your audit. And that audit should just be strictly broken up into our 3 pieces. Right? And really think through, how's your mindset been? How can you shift that mindset? What improvement can you make there? What habits can you put into place? And then what are some of the systems and the procedures that might need to be tweaked? How do you adjust those systems and those procedures to be truly successful for yourself? And then as you really flip this on its head, what tools can you now institute because you did a proper audit? You now understand completely how your mindset's adjusting, how you're growing, how you're becoming resilient. And then you see the pattern and the process and the system that you need to build. And then what tools enhance it? What tools give you the competitive edge in a very competitive market? And then you execute and you put it down and you move immediately. That's how you'll find success to wrap up this year. That's how you'll find success going into next year, regardless of whether the job comes in the next 2-3 weeks or a month, or whether or not that job comes in January and February. You will be better for it. So I appreciate you guys listening. Obviously, I'm going to kick it over to Nate to be able to share some parts about JobSniper, as well as an opportunity for him to kind of give his own 2 cents here. And you guys can obviously answer any questions after that. So Nate, I'm kicking it over to you, my friend.
Sweet. Great. I love what you said there, Stephen. I do feel like it's all about the process you have. I'm a big believer that like the way to get a job is like have the right process. And I think that like to me, I find interesting on that note is like I have some buddies that are in like getting their MBA right now, and I'm absolutely astounded by how much of getting your MBA is literally just how to get jobs, like how to interview, how to network. Like it sounds like that's like a 10 or 20% of what they talk about in there, which I find really interesting. Of like that's half of getting a good job. Anyway, so I built JobSniper to solve a problem that I had because on LinkedIn, I don't know if you noticed, but like almost all of the jobs there are promoted. And my wife was a recruiter for a long time, and the literature that they put out for recruiters says that those jobs get 30x more applications, which means you're competing with a lot more candidates to get the interview. And once you have it, you're theoretically working against way more qualified candidates. It's totally free. It's a Chrome extension. If you go to the Google Chrome store and search JobSniper, it'll come up, or you can just Google JobSniper. It mostly comes up, not always, but mostly comes up. And it's been really exciting to see. I've a lot of people have said they've gotten quite a few more jobs because you're competing with 20 people, not 600. So I definitely recommend it. Y'all check that out. People have gotten a lot of really, really good feedback. I've got a lot of good feedback people using it. The other thing I'll say that like is my personal biggest belief for the job search process. So I don't know if you do this, Stephen, but I would highly recommend it. So I still apply to like 5 or 10 jobs a week to make sure that what I tell people is actually still true, because I feel like in a job market like this, it changes really fast. And if you're talking about strategies from a year ago, they don't always work anymore. And so one of the things that I have been doing recently that has been really impactful, getting way more interviews, is I used to reach out to like 2 or 3 people. I would like pick someone at the company I thought was a good fit, potentially, and I'd like shoot them a LinkedIn message or like, shoot them an email. Because I also find that emails are really effective. And it just like wasn't getting the response rates it used to. So the last few jobs that I've applied to, I message 8 to 10 people that work at that company on LinkedIn, and that's either like connecting with them and emailing them, and that seems to actually have worked. So I'll say that if you're like evaluating your process, like the thing that I found is apply to less, but like put a ton of effort into those few that you're like actually a really great fit for. But anyway, that's my soapbox. Check out JobSniper. People are getting a lot of great results, and yeah, excited to see where y'all end up with the new jobs here soon.
Hi, Nathanael. Thank you so much for jumping on. Can you explain JobSniper again? How do I get it? How do I jump on it? What do I do?
Sure, totally.
Old soul here.
Yeah, no, you're good. Here, I'll make this really easy for you. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat here. And
God bless you.
Yeah, no, totally. And so what it does is when you're looking for a job on LinkedIn, about 95% of them are promoted.
Promoted ones. Yeah, I hate them. They drive me nuts because, like you were saying, it's thousands or hundreds of other people already. It's so annoying.
And it's all of like the reposted jobs, and like I don't know if you're like Lenza and like JobBot, all of these things that are like I don't want to apply to because I think they're fake. They all are always promoted too, and so you're getting rid of all those as well. So if you go here, and then if you look at the little puzzle piece after you download it on the very top right of your the browser that you're using,
okay,
click on that, and then you'll hit the little pin button, and then the JobSniper logo, which looks like LinkedIn, but there's like a big like line through it because it's like blocking the stuff theoretically. And then you'll have it pop up, and you can like turn on and off the like hide here. I'm just gonna drop this in here. It does a couple of things. The promoted is it's not letting me put a screenshot in there, but it hides promoted, and it also hides viewed and applied jobs, the two that I think are the most impactful there. So like if you've already looked at a job, like why the heck would you want to look at it again? I certainly never have. And so you can hide all of those, because I think that if you're actively looking, that's like 10 or 20%, maybe 30% of results. So those are the two things that it does. If you have issues or questions, I'm in the Discord. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to answer them.
Thank you. I really appreciate this, and I really appreciate you hopping on. Thank you.
Definitely.
All right. Any additional questions for Nate? Okay. Well, I'll say this. One of the things that I loved about mine and his topic of conversation when we did our podcast was really his thoughtfulness around the actual plan, right? JobSniper is awesome. Like, it is such a good tool. But just like he said, you still have to do all the other pieces of the pie to make it work, right? And I think that's what makes this so important. And this is the reason why Tena and I want to find as many partners like Nate as we can, because his vision fits and matches the process, right? And so for everybody on here who's obviously the members, please jump in and you can check in to see how this flows for you and how that tool can be just a complete unlock. And it sounds like, Courtney, you're already kind of going down that path with all the connections you've made. I see how you're making that happen. But if you don't understand that, think through how, if you eliminate that down, how does it become a networking tool? That's the process at the end. It's not just an application tool, right? It is, yes, it is an amazing way for you to get your application in early, and it does that for you, and it cuts through some of that noise. But if you don't follow that up with the proper networking technique, you're missing the mark there. So I just want to really emphasize that for you, because if you do that, that's how you turn it into a superpower. Now, with that being said, I've got to turn it over to Tena and let Tena have a moment to kind of chat here, because she's definitely a genius in all things when it comes to job seeking. So Tena, do you want to wrap us up? Oh, she might have had to step away. All right, well, then I'll wrap us up. Again, I can't thank you guys all enough for not just joining and listening in, but also for the recommendations, the referrals that we keep seeing come in. It was great to see the amount of members that we had last week, CNA. It's really just encouraging to see the growth, right? The other big piece of this is just the amount of overall effort that you guys all put in every single week to not just find your jobs, but the help of others. The community is all about that. And so for those of you who don't know Sam, please reach out to Sam. He's in the overall community. And Sam, please feel free to reach out to all the other individuals that are on this call. And obviously, the more we do this and the more we build those relationships, the unlock truly becomes our ability to be able to expand ourselves through our networking, right? And that will help every single one of us not just find jobs, but ultimately, once we have those jobs, be able to build and become better overall impact players, right? Iron sharpens iron, and that's what this community is all about, is us pushing each and every single one of us to continue to get better. So thank you guys for all joining. I look forward to talking to you guys obviously throughout the week or next week on our next mindset. Thank you guys.